All right, so time to trim the brisket. Here on the flat side, opposite the fat cap, our main thing is going to be getting rid of some of this extra stuff up here and some of the silver skin, this muscle fascia. And then this fat here is really just the decal, so the fat between the two pieces that runs along. Because this is basically the end of the flat, and then this is the point muscle down here. So this decal comes up and through, and it's kind of interesting. It doesn't look all that dramatic through there, but on the other side you can see a lot more. But I'll be trimming that down. I often end up with like cutting fairly deep into that because I don't like too much decal. But you really only need it to be kind of flush between the two muscles, because in serving I like to cut that out anyway. And you can see on the fat cap side it's fairly thick, and on that side you're going to want to trim it to be as uniform as possible in the 1/4 inch to 1 inch. And then this muscle that's kind of grayish and not looking real fresh, we'll be cutting out. Sometimes you'll get blood vessels in here that you will want to cut out, and all this bloody stuff. It's not good. This actually looks like it's probably from a different muscle altogether. And then along the sides, there'll be a fair bit. We'll zoom out a little bit. Be a fair bit be trimming out from both sides. This little dangly bit we'll be cutting off. And then a lot of times I'll kind of trim it such that you see the direction to the tip of the flat really well. So when it's time to start slicing, you know that you start right here and cut perpendicular to the muscle as you go up. There's definitely a left and a right side, so you'll get some when you flip it over. The tip of it will be over here, and the grain of the muscle will kind of go like that. And some people actually prefer left side versus right. I don't know which side is which, but definitely when you start actually slicing, down at the very tip of the flat is where you want to begin. So this is post trim. Turns out the decal went all the way out to the end, so the point muscle is basically this funny shaped guy here, and you can see the muscle striations go in this direction. This one was kind of weird. The fat was not real thick right here and real thick and firm through here, so trimming that became a bit of a chore, and it warmed up a bit, especially after washing it. So it's kind of gotten a little bit greasy, so you want to keep it fairly cold as much as you can. The fat comes off a bit easier and stays as a solid bit. Also, since I'm going to be popping it straight onto the smoker this morning, it won't be as cold, won't get as much of a smoke ring this way. And you want the salt to penetrate for at least an hour, if not 12 to 24. But I'm going to go from here and season her up. So this side shows after getting much of that silver skin off, and if it gets a little bit uneven, obviously having a sharper knife is going to get through that a lot cleaner, and you're not going to get as much of the uneven texture. I mean, you can see here the trimmings. It's fairly massive, but you can see here too, I kind of cut off. There's a bit of floppy stuff over here that doesn't do anybody any good. So I cut that off and accentuates the point of the flat. And then it kind of comes all the way through here. So as we're slicing, we'll be slicing along here. And when we start getting into the point muscle underneath, which we'll have it fat side up, then after we start getting into there, we'll go in and separate the two muscles and remove a lot of the decal. In the past, I've done a lot of really carving this out, like frankly I did on this side, where it's coming out, and that's because it was all the webbier kind of fat. Over here being a lot firmer, it's less of a big deal. Although before I season this side, I may well take some more of this out just to help it cook faster, the meat, so I'm not drying the meat out in the interest of trying to render fat that I don't even care about. So yeah, we'll season it up. So this is it seasoned up. You can kind of get a feel for the level of seasoning. Let's get into the zoom lens. Now all the salt crystals you're seeing on here, this is stuff that ideally you want to let it sit, because those salt crystals will just dissolve, and it will penetrate into the meat and tenderize it. Given the amount of time that I have, didn't have time for that. Yeah, I'm going to let this sit for just a minute so that it can absorb at least some of that, and have it, as it absorbs a little, it releases some moisture, and that'll help the rest of it stick on there, so that I'm not dropping seasonings while I'm heading out and popping it on the smoker. Being as how the heat from this smoker comes from the bottom rising, I like to put the fat cap down so that it is protecting the meat from too high of temperature air coming through. And it is worth noting too that part of the reason why it's good to refrigerate it is like right now some of the fat is actually melting some of the less saturated stuff, and just, I mean, eventually all of it will melt and render, so it just makes it a little bit messier. But you don't want to just absolutely cover the stuff so you can't see the meat anymore. You want to have the meat showing through. And I kind of gauge how well it's gone by the level of pepper. I like a good amount of pepper, but I don't want to overdo it. But yeah, notice this is a big bowl here, and it is well outside the top. So a lot of your purchase ends up going into the bowl, which ends up going into the trash. But onto the smoker we go. Got it set at 260 right now.